All right, court is calling. 2024 CR 006-930, State versus Alexander Rodriguez. Can I have parties announced for the record?
Zach Dunn and Rick Pena for the state.
Marissa Fernandez Pratt and Marissa Giovenco for the defendant.
And are you Mr. Rodriguez?
Yep.
All right, State, could you already have your witness here, please?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And I think they're lining the jurors up outside.
All the jurors are here, Judge.
All right, and they're bringing their witness in, and then you can bring them in.
And then just adjust the mic however you need to make sure it's right there.
You can put that microphone. Yeah. How do you spell your first name?
C-V-E-R-O.
So is that your first or last name?
That first name.
I'm sorry. So Deputy Hyman.
Yes.
Okay. Because it has it backwards in the report. Sorry.
Yes,
Bring them in.
yes.
All rise for the jury. What? Thank you.
All right, everyone, please be seated. State, call your next witness.
Sure, at this time, state will call Deputy Hyman.
All right, can you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you can lower your hand. Please make sure that you speak in the microphone and keep your voice so that the jurors can hear and so that I can hear. And if if you'll please speak in the microphone as well, so the jurors can hear and the court reporter can hear. All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, good morning, Deputy. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, sir. My name is Deputy Severo Hyman
Deputy, how are you currently employed?
with the Bexar County Sheriff's Office,
How long have you been employed with the Bexar County Sheriff's Office?
15 years.
What are some of the positions you've had with the Sheriff's Office in those 15 years?
So I started off in jail as a correctional officer, and then I moved over to patrol. I did patrol, been there for about 8 years now.
Is that your current assignment?
Yes, sir.
What are some of your normal duties or responsibilities in patrol unit?
Basic duties are answering calls for service.
Are you assigned to a specific unit on the Sheriff's Office?
No, sir. 3rd West Patrol, which would be overnight shift on West Bexar County.
Okay, you said Westboro County. Is there a specific area of Westboro County or is it all over the west side?
So I'm assigned to my district is in the I-10 and their area as of right now.
As a deputy with the Sheriff's Department, are you a certified police officer in the state of Texas?
Yes.
Now, Deputy, I'd like to talk to you about your education and training for a minute. Before becoming a police officer, did you have to go to like a police academy or something like that?
Yes, sir.
Could you please describe to the jury which academy you went to?
I went to San Antonio College, which it's about a year process.
What did you study while you were in that academy?
Pretty much penal code, CC, criminal code procedure, traffic code, hands-on training, physical fitness, all of the above.
It includes both the classroom and a physical component.
Yes.
Um, how long is the academy that you went to?
It's about 12 months.
Um, did you successfully complete the academy?
Yes.
Okay. What does it take to successfully complete the academy of the sheriff's class?
So there's 4 different elements. I forgot how they would call them. First phase, second phase, third phase, fourth phase, and then you have to take a state exam.
And you have to pass this in order to graduate?
Yes.
Did you pass this exam?
Yes.
What happens after you pass and you graduate from the academy?
So once I pass and graduate from the academy, I take the exam, and then I go back to the Bexar County Sheriff's Office and they hold my peace officer commission.
And were you assigned to a particular unit at that time?
At the time, I was working in jail
How long did you say you worked at jail?
for about 7.5 years.
After you finished that, where did you get assigned to?
After that, I moved over to the patrol division.
Okay. And were you working alone under the patrol division?
What do you mean?
Well, initially, when you transferred from the jail to patrol, were you assigned by yourself?
Oh, no. So pretty much we don't have to go through another academy, which is about 4 months, and then we do another 4 months, what we call a field training officer program with another officer that teaches you calls for service, traffic stops, pretty much everything that we need to know to do our daily job.
So that was for 4 months.
Yes.
And what happens after you complete that 4-month period with the field training officer?
Then you have 1 year probation on your own, and once you're on probation, then that's pretty much,
Did you successfully complete that 4-month period?
yes,
Did you successfully complete your probation period?
yes.
So how long have you been on patrol on your own?
I would say about 7 years.
In that 7-year time frame, probably gonna be too hard for you to estimate that. How many scenes would you say you investigated in that time?
Wow, so I did work the mid shift for about 6 years. That shift is the busiest shift, so we can have anywhere from 10 to 20 calls a day, 5 days a week for 6 years. Yes.
Okay. Of those scenes, did any of them relate to having to respond to incidents of child sexual abuse?
Yes.
During your time on patrol in those 7 years, how many calls for service related to child sexual abuse would you say you responded to?
Wow. I would have to say between a handful and 10.
Now, is there a protocol procedures in place when you're responding to a call involving child sexual abuse?
Yes.
Could you please explain to the jury what those protocols and procedures are?
So pretty much we try not to speak to the victim. We try to speak to the person they made the outcry to, get information from them of what was told to them, and establish if a crime was committed. Once we establish if a crime may have been committed, then we go through our proper channels, which would be notifying our supervisor and notifying one of our investigators. And then that's when they step in and carry on the process of what's the next steps.
I'd like to draw your attention to this particular case now. Were you working on duty on September the 15th of 2022?
Yes,
Do you remember what shift you were working that day?
I was working in mid shift.
Do you remember responding to a call for service around 6 o'clock that morning?
Yes,
Do you remember what type of call it was?
it was the call came out as a sex offense call.
Do you remember where you had to respond to for that call?
I believe it was 77
within Bear County, Texas?
Yes.
Up to that point in time, what kind of information did you have arriving to the scene?
So typically, the call pretty much is pretty much brief as far as what the information was given by the caller to the dispatcher. And, if I remember clearly, a child made an outcry of sexual abuse.
Remember around what time it was that you arrived at the location?
If I serve my memory correctly, it was anywhere between 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
When you arrived at the scene, who was the first person that you came into contact?
So, once I knocked on the door, I believe it was, the mother. And, at the time, maybe her husband or boyfriend, one of those two.
What did you do when you came into contact with these two people?
So I, informed them that I was there for a call for service and, asked to speak to them about the incident.
Did you come into contact with anyone else?
I don't believe so, not in person, no.
Did you come into contact with the person that allegedly made this outcry that day?
I don't recall that, I don't believe so, no.
So after you talked to, your mother and her husband, what did you do after that?
So, proper protocol is, we notify our supervisor, the offense may have been committed. And, then, we get an approval to contact an investigator. We notify the investigator of the incident. And then typically let us know if they're gonna if they're gonna make it out to the residents, or if they're gonna speak to the witness at a later date. And then we, due to the fact that it was, a child, we contact CPS, inform them of the incident. And, then I notify the complainant of what's the next proper procedures, and, give them a case number, and then I proceed to my next call for service.
Based on your experience in previous responses to calls and your training as well regarding sexual abuse of child cases, combined with what you observed that day, did you make any type of conclusions and determinations?
Typically, so in that specific case, I just got the information that an offense may have been committed. And, we really don't make conclusions, all we do is pretty much document what was given to us, forward it over to the proper channels, and they conduct an investigation.
So essentially, you were the first one to arrive on scene that day,
Yes.
and then you just bring in the investigator into the case and hand it off, right?
Yes, I give them pretty much exactly what I was told about the incident, and, I document on my report. And, they review my report, and then they proceed with the process.
No further questions at this time, I'll pass the witness round.
Defense.
Okay, Deputy Hyman?
Yes.
Can you hear me
Yes.
much better?
Yes.
Okay. So Deputy, let's discuss what you just testified to. You're not here to tell the jury that you believe Clarissa, correct?
Correct.
And you're not here to tell the jury that you believe Roy Herrera, correct?
What was the question?
That you believe Roy Herrera,
Correct.
and you're not here to tell the jury that my client is either guilty or not guilty.
Correct.
Okay. The only thing that you did was collect contact information from Clarissa Herrera, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So, and you didn't conduct any investigations.
Correct.
So. When you spoke to Clarissa Herrera, did you speak to her with her husband present?
Yes.
Did you think it would be a better idea to separate the two and maybe get her version of events without Roy being present?
At the time, that did not cross my mind. No.
Now, did you speak to Roy Herrera separately at all?
I believe I may have, after I spoke to, Ms. Herrera and got the information from her, yes.
And do you know Roy Herrera?
No, ma'am.
And you spoke to Clarissa, Emily's mom, for about 10 minutes, is that right?
That may be so, I don't, that was 3 years ago, so I don't really remember.
Now, Clarissa told you essentially what Emily had told her. Is that right?
Objection, Your Honor, that calls for hearsay.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Right, Clarissa told you essentially what Emily had told her.
All right, the objection will be sustained.
Don't get into what Clarissa said to you, but that's what she told you, right?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
You asked her if a crime had occurred,
No,
okay? You asked her to tell you why you were there,
yes,
okay? And Clarissa never told you something happened to her personally, correct?
I don't recall.
Hearsay, Your Honor. Objection.
Sustained.
Now, after 10 minutes of talking to Clarissa, you determined that a crime may have occurred, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And you would agree that whether a crime may have occurred and whether a crime did in fact occur, those are two different things.
that may be so.
And when you gathered this information, you also gathered information about my client Alex, correct?
Basic information, yes,
Address and phone number? Is that a yes?
yes,
Okay. And then you wrote a report about what was said to you at Clarissa's home, correct?
yes.
Okay. You arrived at what time? On September 15th of 2022?
I would say between 5 to 6 p.m.
It's on your report. Do you want to take a look at it? Very top.
So it's not the time I arrived, it was the time that I was dispatched.
Okay. So, how long, when did you write your report?
That afternoon,
And so you submitted your report that afternoon?
yes,
Okay. And then, are you aware that a detective then took your report and investigated the case?
I believe so,
Okay. Are you aware that he concluded his investigation on January 13th of 2023?
no,
Okay. Are you aware that it took almost 4 months of investigating?
no,
When you were speaking to Clarissa, were you actively recording the interaction using the county issued body camera system?
yes,
Okay. And the body camera captured your interaction with Clarissa and with Roy, correct?
yes,
Okay. In preparation for this trial, did you review the body camera footage?
for a brief moment,
You didn't think it was necessary to review the entirety of the body camera footage before testifying?
I recall the incident,
You just testified that 3 years, it's been 3 years and you have trouble remembering every detail from 3 years ago, right?
correct,
Okay. So in a trial, a very serious trial that my client faces the minimum of 25 to life, you didn't think it was important to review the entirety of your videos?
I recall the incident,
Did you interview Emily?
No. You may proceed.
You said you didn't interview Emily?
no,
Was she even in the home?
as far as what the mother told me, no,
Did you look around the home?
no,
Did you collect any evidence from Clarissa's residence?
no,
And you certainly didn't collect any evidence from my client's residence.
no,
And you didn't try to call my client either.
no,
And nothing prevented you from seeking a warrant that day, correct?
correct,
And you were made aware that my client was living with 4 children during this period of time, right?
correct,
Okay. And so you called CPS, correct?
yes,
And that's part of your protocol.
correct,
Okay. Do you ever follow up with CPS?
no,
And then, did the detective in this case ever speak to you about whether or not you believed what Clarissa was saying and what Roy was saying?
Objection, Your Honor, that calls for hearsay.
Overruled. The answer to that question is either yes or no.
What was the question again?
Did you ever speak to the detective about whether you found Clarissa or Roy credible?
No,
Did you ever speak to the detective about this case at all?
no,
Did you ever speak to any of the family members that lived with Alex?
no,
Did you ever speak to his fiance?
no,
Would you agree that it's a lot more difficult to find evidence of an alleged offense when 9 years have passed?
I don't know the answer to that question.
So during an investigation, detectives typically take photographs of the scene, right?
Depending on the situation,
Detectives collect evidence,
depends,
talk to witnesses,
depends,
talk to officers.
depends.
Do you think an actual investigation into the case is important?
Of course.
Customs.
State.
A brief question, Your Honor. We're asked about, did you, if it's a Warren County case, do you do that on your own?
No,
Is it part of your duties, responsibilities to follow up with CPS after you make the initial call?
no,
Is it part of your duty to perform full investigations, or you just respond to the call?
just respond to the call.
No further questions.
All right, is this witness, any further questions?
No, friend.
Is this witness excused?
Excuse from the state, Your Honor.
Yes.
All right, thank you. If you'll leave the microphone behind, please. State, you may call your next witness.
At this time, the state will call Investigator Trevino.
If you'll raise your right hand for me, please. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand. There's a square microphone up there. If you'll put that on your lapel somewhere, please. And if you'll make sure you speak in the microphone so that the members of the jury can hear.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, if you'll state your name for the record.
Carlos Trevino.
All right, state, you may proceed.
Your Honor. Morning, Investigator Trevino. Could you please tell the jury who you're currently employed with?
Bexar County Sheriff's Office,
How long you've been employed with the Bexar County Sheriff's Office?
19 years.
What's your current position with the Sheriff's Department?
I'm a supervisor for the mental health unit.
Have you also been an investigator with the Sheriff's Department?
Yes,
That's not your current position for that.
correct.
Can you please explain to the jury, in your career, what did it take for you to become an investigator with the Sheriff's Department?
So you start your career in law enforcement as a patrol officer, and then you take a test involving policy procedure, penal code, court of CCP, and also you do a review board, and then you get placed in line for promotion based on how well you did.
And from the time that you began your career at the Sheriff's Department, how long did it take you to get promoted to an investigator?
I spent 5 years as patrol officer and then promoted to investigator.
And before your current assignment, how long were you an investigator with the Sheriff's?
7 years.
During that 7 year time frame, what kind of cases were you assigned to investigate?
I started my first year in the general investigation unit,
And then I transferred over to our child safety unit having to do with child crimes.
So would that have been about 6 years you did that?
Yes.
Over the course of those 6 years, how many cases would you say you investigated regarding child abuse?
I don't have an exact number, but probably in the thousands.
Um. So once cases come across that get responded to by the initial officers, how do those cases end up getting assigned to investigators?
So there's a couple of ways. Essentially, a patrol deputy will take a report, and if there is an investigator on duty, then they will call for an investigator, depending on what kind of what's the nature of the crime is. That investigator will answer up and get details about it, and then take that case. Or sometimes it's assigned by a supervisor, depending on who took the report or when it was taken.
Do you recall being assigned a case involving Mr. Alexander Rodriguez?
Yes.
Do you recall how that case became assigned to you?
Yes, I was on duty at the time. Deputy Severo was dispatched to the call. He received the details and contacted for child safe, and then I ended up on duty.
Okay, so since you answered the call, did the case get assigned to you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, does being an investigator of child safe mean you only deal with cases in a particular part of Bear County, or all cases within Bear County involving sexual abuse of a child get assigned to your unit?
Not just sexual abuse cases, physical abuse, child deaths, anything that would possibly be considered a child crime
That's with all Bear County?
within incorporated Bear County.
Being currently a sergeant at the time investigator with the sheriff's department, are you also certified peace officer in the state of Texas?
Yes.
Now you mentioned you were on duty when you got the call from Deputy Severo. Do you recall what date that was?
I do not.
Do you recall if you were working on September the 15th, 2022?
Yes.
Do you remember what shift you were working that day?
All investigators at that time worked from 8 o'clock till 6 in the evening.
So that would have been your shift for the day.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you recall receiving a call for assistance while you were on duty that day?
From Deputy Severo, yes.
And do you remember what type of call that was related to?
It was an outcry of sexual abuse from a child.
What information did you receive up to that point?
Up to that point, that an outcry had been made to a school counselor, and that the mother was making a report of said outcry.
Okay, so once you got that information, what was the first step that you?
In that sense, I received details of when the last incident had occurred. And then once I received the details of that, then I proceeded with the investigation.
How did you go about proceeding with the investigation?
In this case, this is what we call the delayed outcry, where the last incident happened further than 120 hours, which gives us the window to retrieve DNA evidence. Once I found that out, I told the Deputy Severo to write his report, and then I would follow up to schedule a forensic interview with the child in question.
You mentioned delayed outcry. Could you briefly explain to the jury what it means to have a delayed outcome?
Okay, yeah, so a delayed outcry is when an event happens, sexual abuse or physical abuse, and the outcry is made past the time when physical evidence can be gathered. In this sense, it's sexual abuse. We have a window of 120 hours of where we can possibly retrieve DNA evidence from bodies, from clothing, from bed sheets, any place that we can possibly look at. And then in this sense, it had been years after the last incident, so there was no DNA evidence to gather.
During your time investigating these types of crimes, how often would you see cases involving delayed outcry?
It was a majority of our cases.
Do you recall in the time frame what the child's demeanors have been like when you investigated such cases with the light out price?
I'm sorry, say it again.
So cases that you just mentioned to the jury, that might have been confusing, my apologies. But you described to the jury that you've investigated many cases involving the light out price, correct?
Correct,
And each of those had different victims, involving children, correct?
correct.
Do you recall each of the demeanors of the child in each of those cases?
Objection relevance.
Sustained.
Okay. To your knowledge and in your training experience, do all children react the same to abuse?
No,
Can a child always portray abuse early on?
Objection speculation.
It's within his purview as an investigator and his training experience.
You need to lay the foundation.
We'll come back to that. As part of your investigation, did you help assist the scheduling of a forensic interview?
yes.
Can you please explain to the jury what a forensic interview is?
So forensic interview is where a trained professional talks to the victim or the person alleging abuse. In this sense, it's a child. They have training in where they sit down, they question the person that's being interviewed, and I observe in another room live what's going on during that interview. And yeah, we talk about incidents that have happened in regards to the offense or the alleged offense.
So you did attend that interview with this victim.
Yes.
After the forensic interview was completed, what did you do?
After the forensic interview was completed, I conducted an interview with the child's mother.
You recall when that interview took place?
Directly after the forensic interview,
For the same day?
same day.
Did you attempt to make contact at all with the defendant, Mr. Alexander Rodriguez?
Yes.
Were you successful in doing so?
No.
Sorry, did you know what a SANE exam is?
Yes.
Could you please explain to the jury what that is?
Same exam is a procedure where samples are taken to gather DNA evidence from a person's body, both victim and suspect.
I should have asked this beforehand, but the acronym SANE, do you know what that stands for?
Sexual assault nurse exam.
So that's what you just described to the jury?
Correct.
Typically, in your experience, when is a SANE exam performed?
Within when an offense happens within 120 hours.
And again, you mentioned 120 hours. Why is that time frame important?
That's the window where DNA evidence can be present, within that amount of time. Just depends on what type of fluid or DNA evidence can be presented.
Do you recall if a SANE exam was performed in this case?
No,
And why was one not done?
because it was past the 120 hours.
Do you know the victim was offered the opportunity to undergo a SANE exam?
Yes, we do offer a non-acute SANE exam post a forensic interview. If there is an outcry of sexual abuse during that forensic interview, we refer to the Center for Miracles to conduct, I guess, a less abrasive medical exam by a SANE nurse. And the child is then given the opportunity to talk about what happened, and also there's an exam done in the areas that were affected during the outcry.
Just a couple of things. We'll talk about some technical stuff right there. You mentioned the word acute and non-acute. Could you please explain the jury difference between those two things?
Yes, acute is the same exam that's conducted within the 120 hours where DNA evidence is gathered and sent to a lab for analysis, essentially. And then non-acute is the delayed outcry, where if an exam is done by a nurse just to make sure everything's okay, and see if anything is affected during the alleged incidents.
You mentioned SANE nurses. Well, you are SANE nurses.
Do I know what a SANE nurse is? Yes.
Could you tell the jury what a SANE nurse is, please?
So, it's a nurse that's trained in retrieving evidence and knowing what to, knowing what to look for sexual assault victims and see if evidence is present in that.
You also mentioned Center for Miracles. Could you please give the jury what Center for Miracles is?
It's they're a branch of the Children's Hospital of San Antonio that specializes in childcare. And they mostly for victims of sexual assault, physical assault, and everything like that.
During your investigation, do you know if the victim in the case articulated where the events took place of abuse?
Yes,
And do you know where that was?
the suspect's home.
During your investigation, were you able to determine if that was within Door County, Texas?
Yes,
To your knowledge, was the victim herself within Door County, Texas?
yes.
Did you attempt at all to go to the scene of where the sexual abuse took place?
No.
Why not?
Essentially, there was no physical evidence to gather since it was past that window. And the only reason I would have to go to that location if there were circumstances where the suspect wanted me to interview him at that home. But again, no physical evidence together, so I didn't make a location.
So you didn't have any reason to go to the location at that time?
Correct.
Being that the abuse happened years after when the outcry was actually made, would you expect for there to have been evidence at the scene?
No.
What else did you do during the course of the investigation after all that was?
I attempted to contact the suspect and he never returned any phone calls. This case was referred to CPS. I talked to their investigator to see if they were able to make contact with the alleged suspect. And they did at this point, so I just kind of asked if he denied the allegations or if it was brought up at any point, and they said yes, he denied the allegations, and I put that in my report.
Did you do anything else in your investigation?
Just type up a summary of what was done during the investigation, what was said during the forensic interview, and presented to the district attorney's office.
What was the conclusion of your investigation?
Conclusion of my investigation that an outcry was made of alleged sexual abuse for continuous sexual abuse of a child. Based on the outcry that was made by the child, and there was, and then I turned it in. That's basically what I did.
When you say you turned it in, do you mean you filed the case with our office?
Yes, with the district attorney's office.
The district attorney's office. Do you file every case that you investigate with the district attorney's office?
No.
And why may you want to file versus not file a case with our office?
There are a myriad of reasons. In this case, the outcry was very detailed. There were sensory details said during the forensic interview, something that was brought up and everything like that, that seemed pretty convincing that this may have happened. So I presented that evidence to the district attorney's office to see if it was, prosecuted.
May I have a brief comment, John?
Yes.
More questions, Investigator. You mentioned earlier that you attended the forensic interview of the victim in the case, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall, as you were observing her, what was her demeanor like during that interview?
She's very soft-spoken, but she was able to articulate everything that was being said.
Sergeant, in your training and experience, how likely are you to find DNA medical evidence even within 120 hours?
There's
That-
some speculation.
Sustained.
Investigator, when might physical evidence go away?
Myriad of reasons, in this case, DNA can be washed away. It can just be enough time has passed and it goes away. Just depends on the type of evidence that you're looking at.
So the person was signing your own pass the witness.
Defense.
Good morning, Detective Trevino. Clarissa Herrera gave you my client's address, correct?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
I'm sorry, Clarissa is the mom?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so she gave you his address and he's lived there his entire life, correct?
Objection or speculation.
Overruled.
I'm not sure. I was told that he'd been there since for a while, yes.
Okay, and she also told you where he worked, correct?
I don't recall.
And did you ever confirm that the phone number Clarissa gave you was actually his phone number?
It was the same number that CPS had,
Okay,
so yes, it was this, and they were able to make contact with her alleged suspect.
they were able to make contact with Alex because they went out to the home, correct?
Speculation.
All right, the speculation objection will be sustained.
Do you know if they went out to the home?
Yes,
And they interviewed all 4 children that resided with Alex, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation, calls for hearsay as well.
That will be overruled. That's a yes or no question.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
You had all 4 children that lived with Alex, correct?
I'm not sure.
And isn't it true that you never interviewed Lisette, who lived with Alex?
Correct,
And you never interviewed those 4 children that lived with Alex?
correct,
And you never interviewed any of Alex's family members that lived with Alex during this alleged abuse time?
correct,
And you are aware that CPS conducted an investigation for this claim, yes?
correct.
And you spoke to the investigator. Do you remember her name?
Miss Marianne Thiemann?
Okay, is that just because you read your report, or do you remember her name?
No, I remember her name
Okay,
from reading the report.
okay. And CPS routinely documents their findings and their questions and their answers, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation outside the scope of knowledge.
Overruled.
To my understanding, yes, they do.
Okay. And you can request those CPS records just like I did, correct?
Correct.
Did you in fact request those CPS records and the interviews and the recordings?
No,
And that wouldn't have taken you very long to request those, correct?
they were still inside their investigation, so their report wasn't available yet.
Okay, but you concluded your investigation January of 2023, 4 months later. Isn't that true?
Correct.
Okay, so by that point, CPS had already concluded their investigation, correct?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
Correct.
And nothing stops you from supplementing your investigation.
Correct.
Did you ever request the thousands of pages of CPS history on Clarissa Herrera?
No,
Did you ever request the hundreds of pages of CPS history on Roy Herrera?
No.
When did you submit this case to the Bexar County District Attorney's Office?
I'm not sure. I don't have it in front of me.
Well, you concluded your investigation January 13th of 2023. How much later after that do you typically send cases over?
Not sure. It just depends on the case, where it falls in line.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I turn them in at different times. We constantly get cases like I told prosecution. I did a lot of investigations, so there was no set time, especially on a delayed outcry. So, well,
So you prioritize other cases versus cases such as these.
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
There is kind of all right, an arrest record, an arrest case. That where there is physical evidence, where there is witnesses, where there is probable cause, and arrest has been made, those take precedence, so we have to finish those investigations. The at large, which is where there's no arrest done right then and there, there's no time limit on, there's no time hack on those, on when then we can finish those investigations, so they don't take precedence over our arrest cases.
And so when you submitted it to the district attorney's office, you submitted it to the district attorney's office and it lingered there for a few years?
Yes.
That'd be speculation outside the scope, his knowledge.
All right, if you know, you can answer the question.
Yes, I'm
Did it take
it's
you?
years later now.
Okay, did it take you 3 years to submit your report to the DA's office?
No.
Okay. Did you review the body camera footage from the initial officer or deputy?
No, it's just for his report about the outcry.
Okay, so you never compared the story Clarissa gave him to the story she gave you? So you have no idea, you're unaware of any inconsistency?
Just what was Deputy Supervisor's report.
And you would agree, having reviewed his report and then having interviewed Clarissa, there were inconsistencies between the two?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't have this report in front of me and compare them right now.
Did you review the video recording of Clarissa's interview with you
Yes.
before coming here today?
No, not the video, just the report that was made.
So, do you think it's important to my client and to Emily that you testify on a basis that you have knowledge of?
Yes.
Okay. If you were to do it over again, would you have watched that interview of Clarissa before you came and testified?
Sure.
No.
Yes.
Thank you. Did you watch footage of when my client was arrested years later?
No.
You cited in your report that Emily was seeing a therapist.
Yes.
Did you speak to the therapist?
No, well, I just received word that she was maintaining her outcry and being consistent. They didn't give me a report or anything like that.
Okay. By being consistent, that's your version, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so she was seeing a therapist, from Child Safe, right?
Correct.
All right. And this is a free service that's offered to victims, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And you could easily request the records from the therapist and from Child Safe, just like I do, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't do that in this case.
Not before.
And, well, you never did.
No.
And you certainly never compared the therapist notes to what she outcried to at Child Safe, right?
Just that they were consistent from what I heard from the therapist.
So you did talk to the therapist.
I received word from the Child Safe facility that she was maintaining her outcry from her therapist. Whether I talked to the therapist directly I don't think so.
Okay, so you heard from a person who heard from a person that she was maintaining her outcry.
Probably a supervisor if I didn't talk to the therapist directly.
Okay. But you don't know the details of what she was maintaining.
Just of the sexual abuse.
Okay. Now, with regard to the school, did you speak to the school counselor that she outcried to?
No.
Okay. Did you ever try and reach out to the counselor?
No. Report was made by mom.
The report was made by mom, but the initial outcry was from the school.
Correct. She was never identified in the report.
Okay. Did you know where she went to school?
Yes.
Okay. And she told the child safe interviewer where she went to school and what classes she was in, right?
I don't know.
Overruled.
I don't recall.
That information could have been easily obtained, yes.
Yes,
And just like I did, you could have gone to the school and requested the records, yes?
I did talk to the counselor.
And you could have requested her records, her grades,
Yes,
and any notes that the counselor may have taken.
yes,
And you never spoke to any of Emily's teachers, correct?
correct,
And you never spoke to the principal,
correct,
and you never spoke to any of her friends,
correct.
including the friend that tried to get her to come out and say something happened.
Correct.
Do you even have their names?
No,
And you never spoke to any neighbors, correct?
correct,
And you never spoke to family friends,
correct,
and you certainly never spoke to my client's family.
correct.
And to summarize, there's not one piece of physical evidence to corroborate Emily's testimony.
Correct,
So no DNA,
correct,
no eyewitness,
correct.
no signs of trauma.
You know, to be outside the scope of this knowledge.
Sustained.
Did you ask if there was signs of trauma?
Well,
And so did you request for medical records like I did?
no,
Did you request Alex's medical record like I did?
no,
And you don't know if there were any other witnesses to this, correct?
Victor has been asking us.
Overruled.
You don't know if there's any other witnesses to this, correct?
the victim never said there were any witnesses.
And in your years of experiences, victims don't lie.
No, sometimes they did.
And so you didn't investigate as thoroughly as you could have, correct?
Debatable, but,
That's debatable.
well, I mean, you're saying that I didn't, but
I'm asking you, do you think you did a good job of investigating this case?
did what I could.
And that's not the same thing, right? Now, to this day, have you ever spoken to Emily?
No,
In your report, do you have it before you?
no,
Okay. Do you recall citing differences between what Emily said and what her mom said happened?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay, cross hearsay.
Overruled.
can you repeat the question, please?
Did you ever cite in your report the differences between what the child said at Child Safe and what her mom said?
So,
That's either yes or no.
no,
And then you didn't cite in your report what the differences between what she told Child Safe and what she told the district attorney's office years ago.
Objection, recalls for hearsay.
Overruled.
no,
And have you been made aware that since this trial started, she's changed her story again?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
When you met with Clarissa, was Roy present?
no,
Do you think, based on your experience, does a 17-year-old know the anatomy of a man?
Your Honor, speculation.
Overruled.
Would a 17-year-old know the anatomy of a man?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Overruled.
just depends on their experience.
Based on your interaction or suppose your observation of Emily, did she know what the anatomy of a man looks like?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation and outside scope.
Overruled.
Yes,
Now, you talked about not going inside of my client's home because there was no more evidence to be found, but you don't know that, correct?
I mean, no DNA evidence is what my exact words were.
Okay, but you don't know that for a fact, correct?
Well, yeah, the fact is that DNA evidence doesn't come out after 120 hours.
That's inside of a person's body, but let's say a blanket that was used repeatedly in an alleged sexual assault.
I'm pretty sure they did.
Speculation.
Sustained.
Do you recall, Emily stating that Alex would use a blanket to clean her off? Do you recall that?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Do you not think it's important to gather physical evidence that may contain DNA?
Yes,
Asked and answered, Your Honor.
Overruled.
yes,
Okay. And in this case, you have no idea if that blanket was washed or not washed, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Overruled.
no,
Have you ever been inside a home where things are dirty and haven't been washed in a long, long time, or ever?
yes,
And, you ever been inside a hoarder's home?
yes,
Now, let me also ask you this. You could have gone inside the home and taken photographs of the room, correct?
with the search warrant, yes.
Well, if you had gone, maybe my client would have let you in.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
There's no question.
Uh,
Well, it's okay.
I'll withdraw that.
All right.
CPS went inside his home, correct?
Objection, speculation, Your Honor.
Oh, that'll be overruled.
CPS went inside his home, correct?
I wasn't a part of the CPS investigation.
Okay, but you wrote down what they relayed to you, that's part of your report.
So I don't know if they met in person at his house. I don't know if they met at the CPS office, so I'm not sure if where the interviews were done.
You never asked Emily for her cell phone, right?
No.
And you are capable of taking a cell phone and extracting the data in the cell phone, correct?
Yes,
Same thing with Clarissa, you never took her phone or extracted the data in her phone.
correct.
So did they ever offer to give you text messages?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
Did you ever ask them for any incriminating messages between Alex and Emily or Alex and Clarissa?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
No,
You wrote in your report that there were no current custody orders. Is that right?
correct.
Did you do a search to see if that was in fact true?
No,
And you just took Clarissa's word for it, is that right?
yes,
So were you made aware her rights were terminated from Emily?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Sustained. Sustained as to hearsay.
No one, including you, has asked Emily if she was forced to make this out.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, just add what other question?
No one, including you, has asked Emily if she was forced to make this outcry, correct?
Correct.
And you talked about DNA evidence in 120 hours. That's DNA evidence within the body. Is that right?
It can be anywhere.
So the sheriff's office,
Clothing, body, it's DNA evidence can be gathered within the body within 120 hours.
right?
Right.
But outside the body, it stays forever.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
The objection to as to speculation, that will be overruled.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, DNA can be found on a corpse, on a cold case, and then it can be mashed years later, right?
Speculation and outside the scope.
sustain as to outside the scope.
DNA on an item does not wash away after 120 hours, correct?
Objection or speculation outside the scope,
Outside the scope of,
outside the scope of this witness's knowledge.
all right, that will be sustained unless there's a foundation laid.
You testified previously that you know that DNA evidence cannot be found outside of that 120 window. Is that right?
Correct.
And you're not a scientist, you're not a doctor, correct?
Correct.
You're not a SANE nurse.
Correct.
And so your policy is a policy that was founded by SANE nurses who conduct internal inspections of victims of the body.
I'm not sure who wrote up our policy.
So if you're saying it is the policy of the sheriff's department and sheriff's office that DNA past 120 hours will not be collected. Anyway,
Same exam would not be conducted after 120 hours.
I'm not talking about a SANE exam, I'm talking about DNA, seminal fluid on an object.
That's inaccurate.
Okay, so after 120 hours, you could still collect it and find DNA.
Correct.
Okay, so for example, on a blanket, it could have been collected, it could have been tested.
Objection or speculation.
Overruled.
Yes.
That's what.
Have a brief on the chart.
Yes.
A few brief questions here. Did you have any reason to want to conduct an interview of Ms. Rodriguez's teacher?
No, at that point, it's basically, it was a bare minimum. She made an outcry of sexual abuse, no details.
Did you have any reasons to want to interview any of her teachers that she's had throughout her academic career?
No, from my understanding, she had straight A's, was a model student from what was told to me by the mom.
Do you have any reasons to want to conduct an interview with the principal of the school as she attended a potentially the
No,
Did you have any reasons to want to interview all of her friends at the school?
No.
Did you have any reasons to want to interview any of the neighbors at either her residence or the defendant's residence?
No.
Okay. Now, you were asked a lot of questions about being able to gather evidence in 120 minutes time frame. So is it possible for you, or is it expected that you're going to find evidence after that time frame, DNA evidence after the 120 hours has expired?
it's possible, not expected.
And again, why is it not expected?
In this case, it's years after the fact. I'm pretty sure they'd like to do laundry.
So the blanket that defense counsel asked about could have been washed at any point during the years after the abuse stopped.
Yes,
Anything that could have had DNA evidence could have been cleaned during the time from when the abuse ended to the time the outcry was made, correct?
correct.
Includes clothing, right?
Yes.
Pass it, Ms. Sharon.
Any questions?
Yes, so you could have asked Emily's teacher if she's known to lie.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
You could have asked her that, right?
Correct.
You could have asked her friends, her principals, everybody else, if she's a known liar.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
Correct.
And you were aware that she was also not mentally well, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, outside the scope of his knowledge.
Overruled.
You talked to her therapist, and they reported she was suicidal, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay outside. the scope of his
Sustained. As to hearsay.
Were you aware that she was suicidal?
No.
Excellent.
knowledge. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness excused?
Yes.
By the state, yes.
By defense.
All right, thank you. If you'll remove the microphone, please. State, call your next witness.
Your Honor, at this moment, Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes.
is here?
Get it.
That's a yes.
Thank you.
All right.
That's a yes.
Juan Ramos?
Yes.
Judge, real quick.
We just need to add something.
Okay. Well, let me just communicate the offer and you can do the paperwork at your convenience. Back and do it.
Yes. Judge will, also lack of basketball knowledge be held against that.
Oh, of course.
Oh, dude, don't hurt.
Oh my goodness.
Why are you saying that? Yeah, you know, Judge, sometimes I walk the halls as a prosecutor, and you see a big group of defense attorneys, maybe 4 or 5 of them. You know, so sometimes I'm walking and they threaten, give me your lunch money.
It's not me. Here you go. I can give you the number, you have it?
I don't have it, so please give it to me.
Listen, it's actually in your file here. Really in there. Sorry about that.
Is it Pratt with 2 T's?
Not-
I had a classmate.
I didn't put this on the schedule.
I got you, should have. Go.
It was. Do you happen to have, do you have a cousin that lives in Pennsylvania? Okay. No Pratts up in Pennsylvania?
It's my husband who's from.
Fair enough.
Fernandez.
Fair, are you from Tennessee? Where are you from? Heck yeah, a little bit of Lloyd.
This is it.
Court is calling 2024 CR 12086 State versus Juan Carlos Ramos. Could I have the parties announced?
State.
And are you Mr. Ramos? Counsel, have you received all discovery? Did you review it with your client? Court will find that the state is in compliance with discovery. Mr. Ramos, did you review the application for deferred adjudication with your attorney? Did you understand it and sign it?
Yes.
Did you review the true bill of indictment with your attorney? Did you understand it? Counsel, do you waive the reading of the indictment? State, are you proceeding on the indictment as presented?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ramos, did you review the court admonishments with your attorney? Did you understand it? Did you sign it in all the appropriate places? You're charged with collision involving injury. That's a hybrid case in the penal code. So the range of punishment for that is not more than 5 years in the prison or not more than 1 year in the county jail and a fine not to exceed $5,000. If you have a plea with the state, court does not have to accept your plea. If for any reason the court does not accept your plea or gives you more than you bargained for, the fact that you entered a plea will not be used against you and you will be allowed to withdraw your plea. Did you understand? You have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state would call, and the right to remain silent. Did you understand by entering this plea, you were giving up those rights? Did you intend to give up those rights and enter into a plea in this case? Did you understand that the court were to grant your application for deferred adjudication, if for any reason your deferred adjudication were revoked, the court could sentence you up to the maximum range of punishment? Did you understand? Counsel, has your client been able to provide you with any defenses? Do you believe he has a rational as well as a factual understanding of the charges against him? Do you believe he's currently competent and was legally sane at the time of the offense? Mr. Ramos, has anyone threatened you, coerced you, or placed you in fear to get you to enter this plea? Anyone promise you anything other than the plea? Are you satisfied with the way you've been represented? Are you a U.S. citizen? Court will find that defendant has knowingly and voluntarily waived his right to jury trial. Did you review the plea bargain page with your attorney? Did you understand it? According to the plea, the state recommends deferred adjudication. They're taking in consideration 2024 CC 736447, and there's to be restitution, if any, payable to the complainant. Did you understand that to be the plea? Defense is at the plea. State is at the plea.
Yes.
Did you review the waiver of appeal paragraph with your attorney? Did you understand it and sign it in both places? Did you understand by signing that you're waiving your right to appeal? The only items that can be appealed are written pretrial motions that have been filed, heard, and ruled upon by the court. Did you understand? Counsel, have there been any such motions? Outside the agreement, the state is requesting that your community supervision be for a term of 6 years. Did you understand that that's the state's recommendation and the court does not have to follow that recommendation? Then to the offense as charged, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest? Sorry? State, any evidence? All right, state, you may be excused. Did you review the waiver and stipulations with your attorney? Did you understand it and sign it in all the appropriate places? Again, did you understand you have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state will call and the right to remain silent? Did you understand that today the state will be presenting evidence in the form of witnesses' statements and police reports, but most importantly, there will be no live testimony? Did you understand? Court will find that defendant has knowingly and voluntarily waived and consented to stipulation of testimony and stipulations. Court will accept into evidence states exhibits 1 and attachments, and the court will review the same. All right, after reviewing states exhibits 1 and attachments, the court will find there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty. The court will defer finding of guilt as you apply for deferred adjudication. Are you proceeding with sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor.
Anything you wish to say on behalf of your client?
Yes, Judge. These considered aggressive driving force, prior to this. And in addition to that, Your Honor, I did provide a letter from Allstate Insurance, for Mr. Juan Ramos, and it stated that, the claims privilege is needed on the lots of streets, sustain in this.
Okay.
In addition to that, Mr. Ramos, very young, this is the first time he's ever been arrested. It's like that a severe impact and getting into this situation. He understands the consequences and what could happen as far as, possibly hurting someone even more, possibly killing them. I know I'm talking about he's responsible. He wants to put this behind him, and he's taking the necessary steps to be successful citizen. And I know he has some goals in mind, in attacking this probation and being successful, and also long-term goal that he has for himself.
All right, anything you wish to say? All right, I can't hear you. You need to speak.
Sorry. Yeah. Experience. I wanted to go to the military.
Mhm.
I can't think of this.
Oh, sure you can. Yeah, get in touch with the military branch, have them zoom in. And if you sign the paperwork and you're going to the military, and if it is true that Mr. Loman has been paid all of the restitution, if there's no objection, I will terminate your probation and allow you to go to the military. All right, so here's my question. What have you been doing in your spare time? Doing what? Doing what? Okay,
My license to do it. For my permit, so I'm trying to get back into this.
okay. All right, this is what the court is going to do. 4 years deferred adjudication, regular reporting by Zoom or in person, regular random UAs, restitution, if any, to Stephen Loman, proof of employment within 30 days, no employment as a home health care provider or with minors, field visits 1 time per month for 3 months. If you were drug tested today, what would the results be? All right, why not? Why are you smoking?
Just honestly.
Hmm?
Shouldn't be.
Yeah, because the military doesn't want that.
Yeah.
So it'll be a TAP evaluation out of custody. And you're going to do 20 sober meetings in 20 days. How far did you go to school?
Gregory.
And what are you planning on doing with the rest of your life? You say you're going to the military.
Yes, but they want to take my diploma. I did it almost.
Okay. All right, so these are the full conditions. 4 years deferred adjudication, regular reporting by Zoom or in person, regular random UAs, restitution, if any, to Stephen, Steven Loman, Loman. Proof of employment within 30 days, no employment as a home health care with minors. Field visits 1 time per month for 3 months. TAP evaluation out of custody. 20 sober meetings in 20 days. 120 hours of community service restitution. If he completes his GED or obtains some higher level education or trade school or joins the military, the community service hours we deem satisfied. The aggressive driving course, and he'll provide you his certificate showing that he's completed that. Probation, is there anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Is there anything else you need from the court in order to be successful? Did you review the document entitled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Rights to Appeal with your attorney? Did you understand it and did you sign it? Because this is a plea bargain agreement, because I followed your plea bargain agreement, and because you waived your right to appeal, you do not have the court to appeal. And also, as a part of your agreement, the court will be taking into consideration 2024 CC 736447. Counsel, some misdemeanor courts, I don't know which ones anymore because they're different ones. They don't want you to sign their dismissals. So legally, could I sign it? Yes, but I don't like to unnecessarily throw weight around. So,
I don't think it'll be an issue.
all right, thank you. All right, probation, he said that he's gonna be positive for marijuana. So if you'll test for levels. All right, if you ever need anything, just let your probation officer know. If you feel they're not addressing it, you can always come back to me and address it with me, understand?
Yes.
And if you want to go in the military, go over there, let them know that there will be no objections from the state, and I'm sure your defense counsel won't object, that I will terminate you early once you've officially signed up with them. That's been done before in this court, okay? All right, thank you. You're welcome. And your client is here.
I'll do it probation.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know if the paperwork can get done.
We're trying around to get the paperwork on this case. I was gonna send it to be sent out. It's the proceed.
All right, and what type of case is this?
This is Christopher Close.
Well, I tell you what, counsel, if possible, when we take a break, or if you're able to do it over a break, but it'd have to be in the afternoon.
I'll try.
All right, so we'll see if he can. If he can, he can.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and you, sir, what's your name? On the back row?
Thomas Vincent.
All right, so how old are you? All right, when you are asked to come over to the court, you come to the court. Do you understand? Now, you're 21, so maybe you don't understand things. So let me tell you the consequences of certain things, right? If I order you to be here for court, you need to be here. And guess what? When you say you're not coming, all I do is send an order to the deputies to bring you over. And if there is a disagreement between you and the deputies about appearing in court, who do you think is going to win that argument? Yeah, so you had better start making better choices because you're in felony court. Sometimes people feel like 21-year-olds are not fully aware of consequences, but you have to be quick in being fully aware of consequences because you're in felony court. Do you understand? All right. All right, so do you all have your witness?
Yes, I believe he's back. You want him on the stand, Your Honor?
Yes.
Also, Your Honor, we have an intern from our office here. She wants to, maybe she could sit in the bench field too.
Yes. Hi, what's your name?
Allison Greenman.
Oh, welcome. You can, of course, come down anytime and join us. And so, is there a disagreement on whether or not this person is the actual outcry?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, all right, then this should be short. We'll bring them in and take testimony. Hello, if you'll take a seat here, please. And we are back on the record. Okay, just have a seat. Okay.
Oh, sure.
Oh, there, Lorraine's client is gonna be a police, so we'll need to hold him for the afternoon. Mhm. Okay, all right, so all right.
Can I get your name?
Eric Mata with the K.
You put that microphone on, the little bitty one. Yeah.
It's coming right now, Your Honor.
Oh, thank you.
We did great.
He's on the stand.
All right, we're on the record. And this is the outcry hearing and defense. It's the court's understanding that you all agree that this witness that is on the stand, and what is your name?
Eric Mata.
Eric Mata is the actual outcry witness?
Yes, sir.
All right, could you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes,
All right, you can lower your hand, state your name for the record.
Eric Mata.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Eric, with respect to when your forensic interview took place, do you happen to know when that was?
It was in 2023. I don't have an exact date. I'm
No
sorry.
worries. But you were above the age of 18,
I was, yes.
and she was below the age of 18?
Yes, she was.
And of course, just for clarity's sake, where did the forensic interview take place?
It occurred in Child Safe in San Antonio.
Is that your place of employment?
Yes,
Are you a forensic interviewer?
I am.
How long have you been one for?
I've been forensic interviewing since 2000 and the end of 2017.
And do you know why we're here today?
Yeah, for a criminal trial against the defendant, Mr. Rodriguez.
And did you have a forensic interview with Emily Rodriguez?
Yes,
And in preparation for today, did you have a chance to review that forensic interview?
I did.
And we had briefly spoken just about logistics in getting here yesterday, correct?
Correct.
Now, with respect to your forensic interview with Emily, kind of how did that start?
So anytime a forensic interview is conducted, it's through the request of the investigative party. I don't recall which specific investigative party it was. I know it was either CPS or Bexar County Investigator. One of them requested the forensic interview, and we moved forward with it as me as a forensic interviewer.
So when you say you move forward with it, you're talking about moving forward with the actual conducting of the forensic interview.
Right, scheduling and having the family come in and doing the interview and providing services.
So when you're in the room with Emily, how did things start?
In the interview room?
Mhm. Yes.
So anytime we begin a forensic interview, we don't really talk about why they're there right away. We'll spend a few minutes just building rapport and getting to know each other a little bit, just to make sure that she's comfortable in the room with me. Once we did a few minutes of that, we went over something that we refer to as an event narrative practice. And the event narrative practice is just a way for the interviewer to gauge the interviewees' developmental level and just to make sure that they're able to give a sequence of events from beginning to end.
And did you kind of take those normal steps and processes with Emily?
Yes.
And after that, were you able to get into kind of the incidents or acts that occurred?
So after the event narrative practice, we do what we refer to as some truth. I'm sorry, we go over some rules in the room. After we went over the rules in the room, we went over what it means to tell the truth, what it means to tell a lie. And then she promised to only talk about the truth, and then we talked about why she was there.
So she affirmed the nature of understanding what's a truth and what's a lie,
That's right.
and that's common practice.
Yes.
So after that, what happened next?
We went into the substantive portion of the interview, which is where we discussed the alleged abuse.
And with respect to the things she was able to articulate, what was Emily able to tell you? Just what was the first thing you remember her letting you know?
We talked about 3 separate incidents of, in her words, her being molested by her father. We talked about the first incident where he molested her. We talked about the last incident where he molested her. And then we talked about the most memorable incident where she was molested by him.
And with respect to the first, what was she able to communicate to you?
With the first incident, she told me it happened when she was 6 years old. It happened in I guess every incident happened in the defendant's bedroom. She said that she woke up to him touching her breasts, and then she clarified that it wasn't really her breasts because she was kind of too young at that time. She was only 6 years old, so she clarified he was more touching her nipples. After he touched her nipples, she talked about how he dropped her pants and her underwear, and he was putting first his penis, kind of in her words, in her crack, and then eventually, after his penis touching her crack, he penetrated her anus. She talked about how she was really scared and she didn't really know what to do. The only reason why it stopped was because she like yelped, and I guess that tipped him off that she might have been awake, and so he stopped at that point.
And what about that was with respect to the first, what about the most memorable?
She talked about the most memorable incident where, again, it happened in his bedroom, and she was very descriptive as far as how she was sleeping in order to prevent the molestation. She talked about how she would wrap herself in the blanket to make it more difficult for the defendants to do anything to her. But she said that he did end up unwrapping her from the blanket and penetrating her anus this time as well. And also, he made her masturbate him this time.
When you say masturbating him, what exactly was she able to communicate?
Her hand on his penis.
And with respect to the last time, what was she able to articulate?
The most recent incident, she talked about when she was around 10 years old, again, in the defendant's bedroom. She said that she woke up to him caressing her breasts. After he was caressing her breasts, she described him touching the lips of her vagina with his fingers, although she clarified that there was no penetration, it was just on the lips of her vagina. After he did that, he then proceeded to insert his penis in her anus.
And did she remember any sensory details to your knowledge or memory?
Yes.
And what were those?
Well, she talked about the feeling of his hand on her hand, forcing her to masturbate him. She talked about the feeling of his the hair on his genital area, what it felt like against her hand. She described what the bedroom looked like at the time. Apparently, it's not the same bedroom that he would currently be in. It's a different bedroom, and she gave a very descriptive explanation of what the bedroom looked at that time, amongst other details.
Anything about it, something being wet?
Yeah, she talked about how his hand was wet and how he would put his hand on her face after he would make her masturbate him, and how she felt disgusted with his wet hand on her face.
With respect to masturbation, in terms of like the verb, was it movement up and down, side to side? What was she able to articulate?
I believe she said it was movement up and down.
Any other sensory details you remember her being able to communicate potentially?
Not off the top of my head.
And
She did. Oh, I'm sorry. She did talk about the fear that she felt in the moment of the assaults. She talked to me about how she knew about his history, his criminal history. He had talked to her about the things that he would have to do while in prison. And so she knew what he was capable of. And so that's one of the reasons why she was so afraid to do anything while the molestation was occurring.
Did you receive, I mean, you were observing her body language throughout. Or were you able to pick up on her body language?
She was very tense. Her hands were in her laps the entire time, most of the interview. In between her legs, she was kind of emotional towards the beginning of the interview. Throughout most of the interview, she was pretty collected and she didn't show too much emotion throughout the interview up until the end whenever I stepped out, and she kind of cried again after I stepped out of the bedroom, out of the interview room.
And was anyone else in the room with y'all?
No, it was just her and I.
Standard procedure.
That's right.
No further questions from the state?
Briefly, you've been advised not to mention, that my client was in, do you have your micro? Oh. There. Were you advised to not mention, the motion in limine was discussed with you?
I'm sorry, was that advised what?
Not to mention, any past criminal history from my client?
I was not advised to do that now.
Do you understand that you're ordered not to raise that issue until the judge gives you permission?
Okay.
Okay. And just to be clear, Emily was under the age of 18 when she spoke to you?
That's right.
That's what this.
No further questions, Ron.
All right. When you're called to testify, you're not allowed to speak about the defendant's criminal history. That is not to be brought up in any way. Do you understand?
Yes, Judge.
All right, you may step down. The court will hear any argument. Defense, do you agree that this is the outcry witness? And do you agree that his testimony should be heard?
Yes, Judge. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part.
No problem. All right, then, Deputy Laura, these two, if you could put them on hold.
For the afternoon or?
Yes. In my understanding, there's an agreement that's been reached in Mr. Cruz's case.
Is that the one for rain?
So we'll try and work on that before.
And then Deputy Laura, whenever you're all ready, you can bring in the jurors.
Judge, did you see our distinguished guest here in the back of the courtroom?
Hi, Mr. Cox.
Better look now, he disappeared.
How's it going? moments.
Martha, do you mind just spelling your name for the court reporter's purposes?
Yeah, no worries. It's ERIKMATA.
And Eric, can you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Sure. Eric Mata. I am a forensic interviewer at Child Safe here in San Antonio. I've been forensic interviewing since around 2017.
Now, you had mentioned Child Safe. Can you just briefly kind of help them understand what a CAC is and kind of what Child Safe does?
Sure. When he says CAC, what he means is a Child Advocacy Center. Child Safe is a child advocacy center, and there's one in about every large county in Texas. There's approximately 70 CACs in Texas. And there are many things that this Child Advocacy Center does. Mostly we provide services to our partners being either the victims and their non-offending family members, as well as the investigative parties like law enforcement and CPS. My role is to provide services to law enforcement in gathering information to help them determine if they have enough information to move forward with their investigation. And we also provide counseling services, not myself, but within the Child Safe organization, they provide counseling services, educational services, and a variety of other different services.
And I'm sorry, could parties approach, please?
Eric, you had previously mentioned about a bunch of types of services that Child Safe can offer. Yes?
Correct.
Just remind us again, what exactly is it that you do?
So specifically, I am a forensic interviewer. I conduct forensic interviews whenever there's an active criminal investigation happening.
Now, can you help the jury kind of better understand what exactly is a forensic interview?
So a forensic interview, it's a simple conversation with an alleged victim. All we do is discuss any alleged abuse in great detail to help law enforcement determine if they can move forward with their investigations.
Now, as a part of the forensic interview, what types of questions do you ask, or what kind of training do you receive with respect to the types of questions that should be asked?
So to become a forensic interviewer, you do need to go through some very intensive training that is provided by the CAC, the Child Advocacy Centers of Texas in Austin. The training is split into 3 different blocks or sessions. Each session is approximately 20 hours long. So there's a total of about 60 hours of training that you have to complete in order to be like a certified forensic interviewer. the types of questions that we ask or that we are trained to ask are open-ended, non-leading questions. So what that means is that we're not introducing any words or any ideas or really anything to the alleged victim. We're leaving it up to them to tell us whatever is allegedly happening. A brief example of an open-ended, non-leading question would be, let's say that a child had lunch earlier that afternoon. A leading question would be, you had lunch for pizza, you had pizza for lunch today, right? That would be considered kind of a leading question. A non-leading question would be, tell me everything that you had for lunch today. And with that principle is how we got the entire forensic interview.
And is that standard procedure across all forensic interviews?
That's right.
Now, on top of, or I guess I should say, coupled with that theory of non-leading questions, is a part of your training for all forensic interviews, is there any kind of parsing out of truth versus non-truth with children?
As far as the training is concerned,
As part of the training and as a part of your experience with each interview?
so every interview we do go over truth and lies. So we'll have them, the interviewer will have the child define what it means to tell the truth. We'll have them define what it means to tell a lie. If they don't understand or if they're unable to define it, we'll give them examples. And once they have defined it, we'll do an oath, meaning that we'll have them promise to only talk about the truth. And only once after they've done that is when we'll get into the actual details of the alleged abuse.
And you say we. Child safe has its own physical brick and mortar structure, correct?
Right. So what I meant by we, I'm sorry, is we as forensic interviewers, as a general practice, is we do.
Absolutely. And who's in the room with you when you're interviewing a child?
No one, it's just myself, the interviewer, and the child. There are investigators present as well, but they're never in the room. They're in a separate room watching everything through a computer monitor.
So within the room, nobody else. Is that for all interviews?
Yes.
But they're, like you said, there's cameras so other people can view that type of discussion. A rapport building, or do you lead in, or do you just start right hard and heavy? How do you kind of do that?
Well, we do not start talking about why the child or why they are there right away. The first thing that we do whenever we step into the interview room is we identify the cameras, we identify the microphone, that way that they know that they're there. Once the cameras and that microphone has been identified, we'll spend a few minutes on rapport, meaning that we'll just kind of get to know each other and have them get used to the types of questions that we'll be asking. Once we're more comfortable with each other in the room and we've built some rapport, we'll go through something that's referred to as the event narrative practice. And the event narrative practice is just essentially having the child go through an event from beginning to end, a specific event, a neutral event that just occurred like a week ago or whenever. And the purpose that we do that is just to ascertain a developmental level, just to see kind of where their cognitive abilities are. And also we do that to make sure that they're able to tell a sequence of events from beginning to end. So once we do the event narrative practice, as I mentioned before, we'll kind of get into some of the rules that we get into the room. Once we talk about the rules, we'll get into what it means to tell the truth, what it means to tell a lie, and then we'll talk about the oath, and I'll have them make an oath, they'll talk about the truth.
And you go through great lengths to keep the room safe, kind of, that's the whole vibe of the room, is that fair to say?
Okay.
And what percentage or what proportion of children that you interview are considered delayed outcries?
A lot of them. I don't have an exact percentage, but I would say more than half.
And you know why we are here today?
Yes, there is an active criminal investigation against defendant Alexander Rodriguez, and we're here for that.
And did you have a forensic interview with a girl named Emily Rodriguez?
Yes.
And about how long ago was that interview?
It was in 2023. I'm not sure exactly when it was.
And in 2023, you of course were above the age of 18?
Yes.
And she was below the age of 18?
She was.
So when Emily came to the facility, who did she come with?
I She came with her mom and stepfather, I believe.
Was a detective present outside of the room?
Detective was present, yes.
And when Emily and yourself were kind of sitting in this room, how did things start? You briefly touched on it, but just for this interview specifically, kind of how did you begin with Emily?
Oh, once we got into like the detail gathering portion of the interview, like the substantive, I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
Well, just as soon as you guys sat down in the room, did you go through the normal processes and procedures that you kind of outlined for the jury previously?
Yes, that's right. What I described to you earlier is what we do for every single forensic interview, including Emily's.
And what was Emily, I guess, how did you begin your discussion with respect to the events involving the defendant? How did that discussion start?
Well, through our forensic interviewer training, we try to begin the conversation as open-ended as possible. So for most interviews, the way I start the the detail gathering portion of the interview is just to simply ask, what are you here to talk to me about today? And then it's up to them to talk about whatever's going on.
And when you asked her, what did she tell you?
She said that she was here because she was molested by her father when she was younger. Molested was her words.
And after she had notated that she was molested by her father, what did she say after that?
So we discussed 3 separate incidents of him molesting her. We talked about the most recent incident that occurred when she was 10 years old. We talked about the first incident of him molesting her, which happened when she was around 6 years old. And then we also talked about a third incident, which was the most memorable incident for her. So we discussed 3 separate incidents of the defendant molesting her.
When you say 6 years old and 10 years old, those are the age ranges she provided to you
That's right.
through that open-ended questioning.
That's right.
Now, with respect to the first thing or the first real instance that she remembers, what was she able to communicate to you?
The first, you mean when she was the youngest, or the
The
first?
youngest, yes.
She talked about when she was 6 years old, and every incident that occurred only ever happened in his bedroom, in the defendant's bedroom. She was asleep with him in the bedroom, and she would tell me that she told me that she would kind of pretend to be asleep every single time. And so she felt him touching her breasts, and then she clarified, well, I was young, I didn't have any breasts, he was just touching my nipples. So she talked about how he was touching her nipples, and eventually he dropped her pants and inserted his penis in her anus. The only reason that it stopped, according to Emily, was because she was really scared. She was afraid to do anything or to make him stop. So the first thing that she was able to think of was just kind of to yelp, because she was feeling pain. And so whenever she yelped is when he stopped molesting her, this first incident when she was 6 years old.
Was she able to further kind of articulate the nature of that pain to your memory?
She just talked about how it hurt a lot. I'm not sure if she told me exactly how it was hurting. Oh, well, actually, yes, she said that it was hurting a lot and it lasted a long time, was her words.
And you said, he had dropped her pants. To what you remember her relaying to you, were they laying down, standing up?
They were laying down on the bed together.
And with respect to the most memorable time, what was she able to relate to you?
She talked about she wasn't really able to give me an exact time frame, which is common, especially when the abuse is continuous and it's prolonged. But she did talk about how she remembered that it was cold, so she believes it was wintertime. She said that this particular incident was memorable because she was actively trying to stop him from molesting her by wrapping herself in a blanket. That way, it would be more difficult for him to have access to her. However, he still was able to unwrap her from the blanket, and he was touching her breasts, and he again inserted his penis in her anus, and also made her masturbate him. She talked about how he grabbed her by the hand and forced her hand on his penis, and was forcing her hand up and down while they were in bed together.
And was she able to clearly articulate penis, anus, or what was the language that she was using to your memory?
She first referred to his penis as a thing, but it's my job to not just leave it as a thing. We need to clarify what exactly she meant by thing. So I did have her clarify, what is that thing used for? Is there another word for that thing? And she did say it's the penis, the part that he pees with, in her
Okay.
anus.
And was she able to articulate, actually, pausing that for a quick second, just kind of zooming out, what are sensory details?
Sensory details are just anything having to do with the senses. It can be either what you felt, what you saw, what you could hear, what you were able to smell, what you're able to taste. And so those are important details in the forensic interview, because what they do is they help validate whatever it is that they were alleging to have gone through, because it's difficult to just create those kind of sensory details out of nowhere.
And with respect to, Emily, was she able to communicate sensory details to you
Yes.
with respect to this incident?
Yes.
And what did she communicate to you?
She talked about feeling his hand on her hand whenever he was forcing her to masturbate him. She talked about feeling the hair on his genital area against her hand. She talked about how after she was done masturbating him, she was done forcing her to masturbate him, that he then started to caress her face. And she's talked about how his hand felt wet against her face and how she felt disgusted with that.
Was there any other sensory details she was able to communicate?
Regarding this incident, not that I can recall.
Now, with respect to the last incident, what was Emily able to articulate to you?
She talked about again it happening in the defendant's bedroom. She was awakened, or she felt him caressing, in her words, her breasts. After he was done caressing her breasts, she said that he then began to touch her vagina with his hand, and then later clarified that it wasn't with his whole hand, but it was with his fingers. And she also clarified that there was no penetration whenever his fingers were touching her vagina. She talked about how it did not go inside the hole, but his fingers were touching the lips of her vagina. After he was done touching her vagina, he then turned her around so her back was facing him. She said that she felt his hand on her sides, and she felt his penis going in and out of her anus at that point. She said that again, she was feeling pain and she wanted it to stop. And so what she did is that she turned around in order for him to stop molesting her from behind. Once she turned around, this is another incident where he then began to make her masturbate him, because they were then facing each other at that point. I think that's what happened that incident.
And did she ever articulate to you that she told him something or no?
No, she would pretend to be asleep.
With respect to her demeanor throughout, what do you remember about her demeanor that day?
I think that she was tense and she was anxious. Whenever we first got into the forensic interview and we got into the detail gathering portion of it, she did get emotional. She cried a little bit, but quickly gained her composure, and she was relatively calm throughout the rest of the interview. She did kind of break down again. Before a forensic interview is ended, the interviewer always steps out of the interview room to consult with the investigators. And so just to ensure that there's no other information that's needed. And so when I stepped out of the interview room to consult with the investigators, she then broke down a little bit and began crying again while she was alone in the room. But again, all these behaviors are fairly normal for potential victims such as her.
And did you have any indication that she was forced to be there? Any indication that she was under some sort of external pressure?
No.
And with respect to a child's memory and how they kind of outline the things that they're telling you, how do you, or do you ever see changes in like their demeanor throughout the process?
You mean in the forensic interview?
In the forensic interview.
Yes.
Here, what did you observe though throughout?
Well, kind of like I just mentioned, she was emotional kind of at the beginning. I could tell that she was scared. Whenever she was tense, kind of while we were getting the details of the alleged abuse, her legs were crossed and her hands were between her legs. She was kind of sitting at her hands at some point. She was just kind of obviously tense, which is understandable. It's an uncomfortable situation to be in. But that's kind of what I noticed.
I passed the witness, Your Honor.
Defense?
Good morning, sir. When did you interview Emily?
In 2023.
Are you sure about that?
I believe so.
Did it surprise you to know or learn that you actually interviewed her October 11th of 2022?
I believe you.
Okay. About a month after her initial outcry. Okay. Now, as part of your protocol, did you review the police report in this case prior to your interview?
I don't think so, no.
And did you talk to the detective to get an idea as to what you were questioning Emily about?
Yes, that's part of our normal procedure for every forensic interview.
Okay. And so did Detective Trevino kind of lay out what you should be asking for?
Not exactly, no. So whenever we do what is referred to as a pre-staffing, that's the meeting that we have with the investigators prior to the forensic interview. And so during that pre-staffing, it's really just bare bones information, just what's being alleged. And really that's it. They don't ever have any influence on the questions that we ask. That's up to us.
And no, I didn't ask if they had influence, but was the information that you received from the detective vastly different from what Emily initially outcried to you?
To be 100% honest, I don't recall specifically what was said during the pre-staffing. This was a few years ago, and I've had many interviews since then.
Okay. Now, did you ever speak to the initial outcry of the school counselor?
I'm sorry,
Did you ever speak to the school counselor that Emily said she initially outcried to?
did I speak to the school counselor? I did not.
Did you ever speak to her mom?
Yes.
When did you speak to her?
So, if I recall correctly, I do believe that her mom and stepfather was there for the appointment. And so prior to the forensic interview and prior to the pre-staffing of the forensic interview, it is within our standard operating procedure that we do meet with the families as a simple introduction. And so myself and the family advocate on the case, who I do not recall who it was, met with the family and briefly introduced ourselves and explained what the appointment was going to look like. And that's the extent of my meeting with her mom.
Okay. And so her mom and her stepfather were not in the room, but they were in the building.
That's right.
Okay. And they drove her home.
I believe so.
So you talked to all of them, but you certainly didn't call my client, right?
Call your clients?
Right.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay, well, do you normally make contact with those who are suspects?
No.
So you get the police version of events and you get Emily's version of events, but you don't get the suspects, correct?
Right. So we're a neutral party. We do not reach out to the suspect at all.
Now, at the point that Emily was interviewed by you, she knew what the male anatomy looked like, correct?
I would assume so, yes.
Isn't that something that you went over in your interview?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so she knew what the male anatomy looked like, yes?
Yes.
And did you ask her if she was sexually active?
No.
You ever ask?
No, not normally.
And when she described Alex's penis, she said it was brown, correct?
I believe so.
And she said it was hairy.
She said it was hairy.
And then I believe you asked if there was any other details that stood out to her.
Yes,
And she didn't mention anything.
regarding his penis?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
And then she also told you that she assumed it was Alex because he slept in the bed with her, but never saw him. Is that right?
Well, I don't know if she saw him, but he would talk to her during the incidents.
And we'll get to that. But so the question is, she never saw him.
No, she would pretend to be asleep. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, she did describe an incident where she saw him. She talked about a time where he was attempting to kiss her, and she did not allow him to kiss her, and so she would move her head to the side
Okay.
during the molestation.
Would you be surprised to learn that she didn't disclose that to anyone here when she testified?
No, that's not surprising.
Did she tell you her eyes were open during that incident?
I don't believe we discussed that now.
But you're a neutral part. You're neutral.
Yes.
Did you ever ask Emily if she was being forced to give this interview?
No, that's not a question that we normally ask.
Ever ask them if they're there by their own free will, or if someone is pressuring them to be there? You never asked that?
We screen for coaching. That's not something that we discussed this interview. I don't believe there was any concerns for that at the time.
Did you ask Emily who, after all of these visits with her father, who was responsible for washing her clothes?
No, we didn't talk about that.
Okay, did you ever ask Emily if she was had any injuries like bleeding?
We did talk about the pain that she felt. She didn't describe any bleeding.
And did you ask about any cuts?
We did not discuss any cuts, no.
What about sores?
Nope.
Did you ask her if she had any bruising?
We did not talk about that, no.
Isn't it true that Emily told you that her father always kept his underwear on?
I don't recall her saying that.
Isn't it true that she told you that she always showered afterwards?
I don't remember her saying that either.
And that she would stay in the bathroom for hours after?
She didn't say that in the interview.
Let's get the transcript. Okay. You recall Emily claiming that she was even sexually abused on a camping trip?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to 412.
I like the party's approach. And defense, you may ask your question.
Do you recall an incident where Emily claimed that she was sexually abused on a camping trip with her father and his family?
There was no discussion of a camping trip during the forensic interview.
Do you want time to review your forensic interview?
I reviewed it this morning.
Uh, And you also testified, I'm sorry, Emily also told you that Alex's penis entered her anus and she yelped
She said it went in and out.
in and out. Okay, and she yelped.
Yes.
Didn't she also tell you that another time when she was penetrated, she bit her lip?
I think I do recall her saying that, yes.
Okay, but she didn't describe tasting blood or having a sore in her mouth.
No.
Isn't it true that Emily confirmed Clarissa and Alex were having an affair?
Ejection relevance, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Isn't it true that Emily confirmed Clarissa, her mother, and Alex, her father, were having an affair?
With all due respect, I believe you're confusing something because she never discussed any of the things that you're talking about in the forensic interview. Not the affair, not the showers, not the camping trip. None of that was discussed in the forensic interview.
Okay. I think we're gonna have to rewatch it in a minute, and then I'll keep going, but as you remember, you don't remember those things.
That's right.
Okay. Now, you testified that her hand was forced to be on his penis, right?
That's right.
And that he ejaculated on blanket?
She did not use that word. She just said that it felt wet.
Okay. And that he cleaned her up with a blanket?
That's right.
Okay. And it was the same blanket every time?
She did not say that either.
She said she was cleaned up every time.
No, she said she was clean. She described one incident where she was cleaned up. She did not say every time.
Then here she also stated that, oh, she told you that he caressed her face and with a wet hand put it over her mouth.
That's right.
Okay. Would it surprise you to know she didn't mention that to this jury?
Objection relevance as to the question of surprise.
All right, the objection to relevance will be overruled.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Would it surprise you to know she didn't testify to that in front of the jury?
To feeling his hand on her mouth? No, I don't think that would surprise me. It does not surprise me.
Did she ever mention a funny smell or anything to do with a smell as far as her sensory details?
No.
And she didn't tell you that Alex would call her name out, right?
No, we did not discuss that.
Okay. And she didn't tell you that Alex would say, "I love you."
She did say that he would say things to her at the time of the interview. She said that she could not remember all the things that she said to her, that he said to her.
And that when he said things, it was in a whisper.
That's right.
Now, Emily also told you that she got her period while at her grandmother's house.
No, we did not talk about that.
You're claiming that you did not talk about her period?
Sorry.
Do you have any way to track whether, well, let me start this. What is a recantation?
It's whenever a child has previously made an outcry of abuse, and a recantation is when they take back the outcry.
Okay. And there is no way for you to track how many recantations there's been in this county, right?
No, I have no idea.
Okay. So you've been doing, I don't know how many interviews have you conducted?
Approximately 2,500.
The 2,500, you have no idea what percentage have recanted their testimony.
I have had recantation interviews. That is something that most definitely happens. I do not have an exact number for how many recantation interviews I've conducted.
Okay, that's the witness.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness excused?
Excuse for the state, Your Honor.
I'm gonna review it over lunch, Judge, so I'm gonna hold on to him for that.
All right, can I have parties approach?
I'm gonna have you all back here at 1:30. Remember my previous instruction. Do not think about this case outside this courtroom. Do not do anything. Do not talk about it. Do not start deliberating. If somebody happens to talk to you about this case because they don't notice your badge, just walk away. Does everyone understand? Yes. All right, so we'll start back up at 1:30. Everyone please rise for the jurors.